All glories to the Assumption. All glories to the Assumption. All glories to the Assumption. All glories to Shri Guru and Guru. Mukam karati vachalam vagam lange Yakam tamam vande Shri Guru Viduttarina Amagyana timirannasya Gyananjana shilakaya Chakshuritam yena tasamai Shri So tonight is a very special night because we are commemorating the Disappearance Day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You can see his picture on the altar. He is the fourth. If you look on the bottom pictures, there's 5 pictures. He's the second to the last on the right side. Or counting from the left side, he's the 4th picture. And our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and his guru was Gaurkishore Das Babaji, and his guru is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also the father of the second one, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And he had 10 children, or some say 12 children, some say 10 children. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was one of them. And he remained celibate or brahmachari his whole life. And he carried on the mission of his father. So 5,000 years ago, Krishna came, he spoke Bhagavad Gita, and he requested everyone to surrender to him. But people misunderstood, and they thought, why should I surrender to him? Who is he? So then, therefore, Lord Krishna again came 500 years ago, approximately, as Lord Chaitanya. On the right side is Krishna, and on the left is Nityananda, who is an incarnation of Krishna's brother Balaram. So they came to give us this chanting that we're chanting today, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But then again, in the course of time, it was passed down from guru to disciple. Then, about 200 years ago, it became a bit degraded in Bengal. And Bengal is where the gurus mostly were, because Lord Chaitanya appeared in Bengal. And so then, it was, there were many groups which were imitating and were not actually following properly. And so, therefore, the movement of the Krishna consciousness had a bad reputation, because there were a lot of groups that were misrepresenting Krishna consciousness. So, at this time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born, 177, approximately 180 years ago. In 1838, he was born in Bengal, Virnagar. But his father died. He was born in a very wealthy family, but then his father died when he was 13. So he had to leave the family and move to Calcutta for his education. And but he was very, very good in studies, and he graduated, and later on he became a high court judge, or at least a court judge. I don't know about high court, but it was pretty high wherever he was, in Bengal and Orissa. Not perhaps the highest court, but he became a very well-known judge, and they couldn't figure out how he would do his cases so quickly. And they thought, maybe he's sleeping or cheating or doing something. But then they watched him and they said, yeah, he's actually so intelligent that he's able to do it. So, he was an amazing personality. So we'll speak a little bit about him today, what he did, what were his achievements, how he lived his life, and as the father of 10 or 12 children. At the same time, he was a judge in the court. And in those days, the judges in India, they had a lot of power. They could, the government gave them a lot of power and respect. And they would even be, they would have to enforce the law, actually, in some places. So, and even despite this, despite his heavy workload, he was working 6 hours a day. Later on, we'll get into his schedule. But from 10 in the morning till 1 o'clock, he would go to the court, and again in the afternoon from 2 to 5. So he was very, very working very hard and doing hundreds of cases. So, but besides that, he had a very active spiritual mission, and he was going there to take away all of the misrepresentations, all of the contamination which had come into the Vaishnava religion by these imitators. They're listed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, 13 different types of Upper Sampradaya, or those who are cheating people in the name of being Vaishnavas. So one time, in one place, he gave a historic speech on Srimad Bhagavatam, which attracted thousands of people. And because he wanted the world to know, the hidden treasures which you find in Srimad Bhagavatam. As we know, Srila Prabhupada has told us that if you hear attentively this book, Bhagavatam, you will see Krishna on every page. so he attracted the people to hearing Bhagavatam. But he also took care of a lot of practical things. In one town where he was living, the town's name was Champaran, there was a ghost. Not an ordinary ghost. A Brahma Daitya, means a ghost who was a Brahmana in the last life and then became a ghost. And one day, so this was in the town he was living, so he wanted, and people were going to this tree. There was a tree where the ghost was living, and they were worshipping the tree. Because some people like to worship ghosts and these kind of beings. This is called worship in the mode of ignorance. So he hired one Brahmin to read Bhagavatam under the shade of this tree for 1 month. And this Brahmin was the father of a very famous girl scholar. 200 years, 150 years ago. There were also famous girl scholars in Bengal. So he was the father, and I guess he trained her up. Even nowadays you have in Varshana, there is one Babaji who is training up teenage girls to do Bhagavad Sapta, and they travel all over India. So this is still going on. So he hired the father of this girl, and after 1 month of reading Bhagavatam underneath this tree where the ghost was living, he finished the whole Bhagavatam, and as soon as he finished, the tree crashed to the ground, and the ghost left. But everyone was thankful except some dishonest people who were worshipping the ghost. So they were not happy, but the good people were happy with this act of Bhaktivinoda. So then he moved to Jagannath Puri after this, and it was in Jagannath Puri that his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was born. And when the child was a baby, 6 months old, they took the child to see Jagannath, the deity, who was on Rath Yatra on the cart. And the cart had stopped in front of Bhaktivinoda's house. So Bhaktivinoda's wife took the baby, and because he was a judge and he was actually taking care of the temple of Jagannath at that time, they allowed her to take the baby and climb up the stairs to the feet of Lord Jagannath. She placed the baby in front of the Lord, and a garland fell on the baby, which predicted that he was going to be a great soul, and he was a great soul. He took up his father's mission of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. So Bhaktivinoda, when he was in Puri, he was checking many malpractices that were happening there. There were a lot of, the offerings weren't happening on time, and there were some things going wrong. And so therefore the government was very interesting, although it was an English government, they wanted him to make sure everything was good there. Interesting. So he was doing that along with all his court cases. And at the time, there was also one pseudo-incarnation. He claimed he was an incarnation of Mahavishnu. His name was Bisika Sen. And he claimed he was Vishnu, Mahavishnu, or Krishna. And but at the same time, and because he was claiming that, he was taking all the young girls and having illicit sex with them, because he said, I'm God, so I can have all of these girls. And he was doing a lot of, and other things like that. But he had some mystic powers, and so he was cheating the people into thinking that he was God. And we see nowadays also sometimes pseudo-incarnations come, and they claim to be God because nobody knows who is God. They don't know what the criteria is for God. And so therefore they believe that these people are God. But this particular yogi also wanted to make a revolution against the government, but there were a lot of complaints against him from the fathers of these young girls. So the case came to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he put him in jail. And when he was in jail, then there was a problem, because he had some mystic powers, of course they were the black arts, they weren't the good arts, they were black magic. So when Bhaktivinoda put him into jail, then his family, some of his children got very high fever, and he himself was also very sick with a high fever, and they understood it was because of this yogi. So then, but he wouldn't step down. He kept his ground, and he said you should take off his hair because his power is in his hair. So they went to shave him, and they took off his hair, and then later on he just died in jail. So then another one came up, and then he also dealt with that one. The next one was called Balaram or something. So he was very, very strict with people who were claiming to be God, who were cheating the people. And so all of their plans were frustrated. And when he was in Puri, he was discussing a lot of spiritual works with elevated scholars and different people. And he prepared notes in Vedanta Sutra, which were published. And he did many songbooks, which we have nowadays. We have a very abbreviated version of his books. We just have a few songs in our songbook. And then he started a newspaper, a journal, a magazine. He did actually over 100 books, including songbooks. So then another thing he did was in Vrindavan, there were dacoits, and they would attack all the pilgrims who were on the road. And so he, after many, many months, he got rid of all these bandits, these dacoits from Vrindavan forever. And he was always chanting and preaching the holy name. Then, that's later on, 1896, he sent the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to all the universities in many places around the world. And we are familiar with, in Canada, I can't remember the name of them. Where is it? McGill University in Canada. And I think they got a copy of it from there somehow, the devotees. And also in UK he sent it. And he sent it many places because he wanted to start the preaching all over the world. Because Lord Chaitanya, he made a prediction that all over the world, my name will be heard. Lord Chaitanya, when he came, he simply preached in India. But now, by the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Gopishwar and Srila Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya has started his preaching all over the world. He has come here also to give the holy name. He's with us today, right here. Even now, since 500 years, he's still spreading the mission. And he's engaging all of us who are trying to help him. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, let's see. Right. So he was requesting all the time to the government to please transfer him to Mayapur or Navadvip, or somewhere nearby. And when they refused, then he quit his job. But then they said, okay, we'll send you to Krishnanagar, which is not far from Mayapur. And so he would live in not in Mayapur, but across in Gojram. He was living very close to Mayapur, his house was there. And he would go by train every day to Krishnanagar. Now, because he was such an important person, they built a railroad that goes right from his house to the court in Krishnanagar. You can see that railroad is still there today. It's a very small one, just a little one car, pretty much. And he would take the train every day and back. Yeah.
It's actually they removed the tracks now.
No. Oh, last time I was there, I saw it. Oh, that's terrible.
That's sad.
When was that?
Well, it's just a month and a half ago.
Oh, yeah, when I was there, it was still going.
Yeah.
That must have been a long time. 10 years? Not that long. 10 years ago. I saw the tracks in the train. Now they've removed it. Oh well, what to do? Such as Kali Yuga. Vrindavan is also becoming covered and buy so many things, houses and cars and trucks, buses. Anyway, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had a very special relationship with Navadvip because he was searching for the place where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, where he appeared. And they were claiming in Navadvip that his place was there. But then when he looked it up, he did some research, he found the city of Navadvip was only 100 years old. Lord Chaitanya appeared 500 years old. So how could it be there? So then he did some more research, and then he found a place where many self-realized souls were worshipping. And this place was, when he looked at the map, it was called Shri Mayapur. And he discovered that place in 1895. He officially established that this is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is one of the important things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. And in order to collect for the temple, he went to Calcutta, away from the village of Krishnanagar, and he started going door to door to collect donations to build the temple, personally. And it was like he was only asking 1 rupee a person, which in those days was worth a lot more. In the 1800s, a rupee was a lot of money. I mean, comparatively. Maybe it's worth 100 rupees today, or $2, I guess it's not that much. $2.50. No, $1.50, yeah. When I first went to India, it was 7 rupees to $1. Now it's 60 rupees to $1, so it's going down. But so he did discover this birthplace of Chaitanya, and he built a temple there. And he was going to houses even of his enemies to collect money. And everyone was giving him. And so he collected the money for the temple. And he wrote so many books, Harinam Chintamani, Bhajan Rahasya, and there's one commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. It's called Bhagavaraka Marichi Mala. And according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, this commentary is the best of all, because it takes verses. He divided into 20 themes, the whole Bhagavatam, based on some Bandha Abhidaya and Prayojan, and then he wrote an essay on each one, and the essay was comprised of Bhagavatam verses. The whole essay, you just read the essay, it's just verses from Bhagavatam for each theme. Amazing book. So his son Bhaktisiddhanta said this was the best commentary on Bhagavatam. Then after his I would like to tell before he leaves his body, what his schedule. And this I didn't get from here, I got this from Mahanidhi Swami's book. 10 o'clock his day or night would start, 10 o'clock at night, and he would write books until 4 in the morning, from 10 at night till 4 in the morning. So that's 6 hours of writing. He would start at 10. Then at 4 o'clock he would rest for half an hour, 4 to 4:30. Can you imagine this schedule? You start your night with writing books, 6 hours, so that's why he wrote so many books. Then half-hour rest. Then from 4:30 to 7 he would chant japa, Hare Krishna, on his beads. That's 2.5 hours. Then 7 to 7:30 he would answer correspondence. Then 7:30 to 9:30 he would study the Shastras, the books, scriptures. 9:30 to 10 he would have his bath and eat. And what was his meal? Half-liter milk, some fruit, and 2 chapatis. So half an hour for bathing and eating. So then 10 to 1 he would go to court and be a judge. 1 to 2 he would go home and refresh. Or maybe take a little nap, I don't know. And then 2 to 5 again go to court. And 5 to 7 in the evening he would translate Sanskrit Shastras to Bengali verses. 7 to 8 again bath and prasadam, half-liter milk, rice, and 2 chapatis. So then 8 o'clock, 8 to 10, that was his rest time, 2 hours. So 2 hours at night, half hour in the morning. It's incomprehensible. Maybe a half hour at lunchtime. So he's got a summary here. Sleeping 3 hours. So he must have slept a half hour during lunchtime. He didn't seem to eat, but he did sleep a little. Writing, 8.5 hours. Japa and study, 4.5 hours. And work, 6 hours. And he also had 10 children, or 12 of them. And I read somewhere that he gave quality time to each and every one of his children. So just imagine what he had a huge family, but he never saw them as they were his servants. He saw that he was their servant. In one of his songs, he says that in my family, I see they're all servants of Krishna. So my duty is to maintain them. I have to maintain all these servants of Krishna. So that was his mentality in his family life. So in the before I tell his major achievements, we can tell about the end of his life. He went to Puri and he built a house on the beachfront. And he left his family. He took the renounced order of life in 1908. But people still came and visited him all the time and get the blessings. But in 1910 he closed his doors and he didn't go out. And he stayed in a perfect state of samadhi. And in 1914 he left his body on this day. What is today? June 16th? Oh, it's not the date, it's according to the moon calendar. So I don't know exactly what the date is today. But maybe you know, I don't know. It's after Ekadashi. It must be after Purnima or Amavasya.
It might be Amavasya today or tomorrow.
Oh, really? Is that close to Ekadashi? So on Amavasya, okay. Probably on